So, hello. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's having an awesome day. This is 50 pips, rocking and rolling, 21st of August, 2015. Again, not making any trade calls, recommendations. You and only you're responsible for the trades you may decide to take. And we're here just for a little update, and we'll see what happens. Now, does it sound okay for everybody? Okay, good stuff. Now, I couldn't have picked a worse time to do this because the market's starting to move again now. Anyway, we'll have to do some multitasking here. So I hope everybody's having a great time. So basically, I'm just going to be a bit lazy here, and because I had a bunch of questions on the weekly webinar and stuff, so I just thought instead of having to type out the same answer to everybody or copy and paste, I just thought I'd do it live so we can take care of anybody. But apart from that, I'm more than happy to take any question anybody may have, so nothing's really off the table. So while I talk through other questions that you may not be interested in, feel free to type away. Hey, Walking Trade, how's it going? To use that Q&A box to just type in any question you may have, and I'll get to it. I really don't mind. I don't want to have I don't care about having any kind of uh, fixed pattern for the webinar. I'll take care of anything that comes on as the questions come by, okay? So a lot of questions, basically people asking me, what's the deal on this weekly webinar? Why are you stopping why are you going to shut down the subs and everything? And basically what's happening is that it's not that we're just trying to shut down the subs or anything. It's that throughout the years and throughout the time of working with people, both on a one-to-one level and in these weekly webinars, I'm increasingly completely convinced that the only real way to help people is to help them internalize things in a live environment, right? So what happens is that, as we say, what you have to do is not that complicated. It's fairly simple, but it's not easy in Forex, right? And a lot of that is due to the fact that context is ever changing, right? We're not talking about something which is static. We're talking about something that is dynamic. So as much as everybody can learn what a pip is, what a fib is, what a moving average is, and you can go out and read all the trading books you want, then when people have to put that into practice, it becomes really difficult, right? Because they don't understand the context. They can't adapt to an ever-changing market, etc., etc. And that's something which we've always tackled with the weekly webinars, which is kind of like a morning call. Again, a lot of people get confused talking about the fact that it's a weekly webinar. It's not a weekly webinar. I should change the name, but we have a session every single day, right? So into New York Open, we have a 1-hour session, and that's basically a morning call. So we go through all the markets, we review all the markets. I tell people what trades I'm taking. I take trades live if I have to take them, and then we go through any kind of dynamics, anything that's happened. We look at trades that can set up. If anybody has a trade they're looking at or a trade they're managing, we go through it. I pull it up on the screen and we go through that. And I think what's really useful of those sessions is the fact that we are a small number of people in there, and that means that I can take everybody's questions, right? If I had 400 people in there, I couldn't possibly go through, review everybody's trade, everybody's setup, and comment adequately. That's why another reason why I want to kind of close down the group. Now, the other thing is, because we have this commitment to really try and take things to the next level, what I noticed is that, even though all these learnings are helpful, and it helps people internalize what's going on when we look at context in a live environment, a lot of people don't know where to start, or they get stuck with old teachings or old things, right? Which may be, the classical spreadsheet, a crazy journal with 2,000 input points, or God knows what. So what we're going to try and do there is we're going to start September. So we're going to start a set of foundational webinars, and what we're going to talk about is, again, what kind of mindset do you have to be in to be a trader, how to do this properly, what are realistic expectations, what could you realistically expect to make in terms of return on your account, rather than all the fortune seeker strategies and all the people selling the dreams would like to tell you. And based on what is realistic, how to scale your account, or how to scale your leverage properly based on the risk profile you want, right? That's a really key thing. On top of it, we're going to look at, what are the strategies, what are basic strategies you can take, how to trade those basic strategies. And like everything, there's nothing is black or white. Everything works or can work. It depends how you do it. So what I'd like to do is look at 2 or 3 core basic strategies and look at different ways of trading the same strategy, right? Exactly, a lot of different shades of gray. So say this is a basic strategy which if traded this way will likely have a positive expectancy, but let's look at how we can trade it differently depending on different market conditions, etc., depending on different account sizes, whatever, right? After we're going to look at that, we're going to look at, how to keep track of your trades. If you're on DarwinX, you've got all that journal. If not, what is a simple and effective way of journaling without making it too complex, without being lost in the noise, without being, all these old books or old things that lead people to believe that to journal properly means that you have to take a screenshot of everything you're looking at, take a screenshot of every single trade you've ever taken in your life, and then file it away. And before you know it, you need to move into a new office because you've got 65 folders full of paper that you're never going to look at, right? And you're going to be wasting time looking at stuff that happened. But again, in hindsight's 2020. So what's important is to understand how to change your behavior, how to change what you're doing in a live environment, not, going back on a chart and looking what you should have done or shouldn't have done. That's not too complicated. Putting yourself in a condition where you understand how you need to set yourself up, what expectations you need to have, and how you have to scale in order to be in a position to effectively do what you wanted to do in the first place. That's the key thing, right? And all these things, and more. So, we'll probably have, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 of these webinar sessions. And what I wanted to do, the other reason to also freeze the subs and not have any new subscriber, and because my point is I want people to stay in for the whole duration of all these foundational webinars and discussions we're going to have. There's nothing fixed. We're gonna adapt as we go along, because I want them to get the benefit of the whole thing. I don't want somebody to come in halfway and then be kind of lost, right? So again, it's really not for everybody, because it's a dynamic approach. It's a real approach of doing things, and I know some people don't like that. So I also wanted to clarify that. But again, there's no right or wrong. There's just different ways of doing things. I don't believe in reading a gazillion books and then trying to internalize that straight away. I don't think that the best way of doing it is to go to a 1-week seminar or a weekend seminar or something like that. I mean, you can, and there are people that spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do sessions like that. But I just think that even though the content could be exceptional, it's just impossible to take it all in. And even if you try and take it all in, you're going to spend the weekend or the week dying trying to take notes, try to scribble notes that you probably can't read anymore. You don't know what you wrote, or you're going to come back with a bunch of material, but that's not really going to help you, because there's only so much you can take in, and stuff clicks by repetition, by positive enforcement. So some people will not want to do that. Some people will rather spend $5,000 or $10,000 to do a week course or a weekend course and think they're going to internalize that. But I just don't think it's really possible, right? I think it's much better to spend a couple of $100 or whatever a month and do it for 6 months or a year, and to get where you want to go. Again, it's very difficult to believe that you can just decide to do any profession and pick it up in a weekend or in a week. So I think it takes time, and it makes sense to try and do it in a live context. That's all we're trying to do. So I think that answers most of the questions. So if anybody has any more questions on that, let me know. I'm more than happy to expand. And but that's what I wanted to address. Again, does anybody have any questions on that or anything else? I'm more than happy to take anything. Yeah, it just started. So I posted an article today on just 34 LG screen, And then one of the followers, who's a cool guy, just emailed me through the blog saying, "Hey, here I have that screen. Look at it." And I said, "Okay, does anybody else want to share their setup?" Because I know traders always like to look at setups. So again, I said, anybody who has a setup they want to share, just open up 50 pips on your screens and take a picture and send it to me through the blog or whatever, and I'll send it over and I'll try and share it. We only got a couple. I don't think a lot of people want to, and also it's just most people's desk during the day are usually a mess, right? So people are probably, if I get some, I might get some other ones later on in the day when people have time to tidy up their screens. Yeah, sure. It seems like a bit of a shame to be around and not look at the market, right? So let's take a look at the market. I mean, I think fairly decent markets, very nice moves here. Again, I might be slightly off because I'm trying to do a gazillion stuff. I've got some open trades I'm trying to manage, but yeah, I think the main thing we need to look at here is what's going on the ES, right? So I think it's no big surprise here, and what we said, and I think anybody who's been looking at even the free YouTube videos, we kept on saying every Sunday, we talk about the fact that we're tactically looking to open shorts around the 2100. We think that this is going to roll and that it's time to see a healthy retracement, 5 to 10% correction, and pretty much it's looking pretty good here, right? So right here, I think it's really important that the market manages to hold this 12,000. If it doesn't, this could be very, very heavy. Our target for the correction is back into the 1950s. So right here, we're pretty much stuck at a pivotal zone, right? We're stuck at this pivotal level, and we'll have to see what happens. Keep in mind, it's expiry today, so we could see some funky action. But here, this could clearly accelerate. Again, it's not really the end of the world. It's a big move, and we haven't seen ES trading down this level for a while. But again, globally speaking, it's not a massive move. It's not a crazy move. It's just that most people on Twitter are too young to remember the market being under 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 these highs, right? So there's not an awful lot going on. I think very nice. If you were trading that tactically, I think here really the percentage play is to cover, right? Unless you were holding some very big, you're trying to go for bigger swing shorts with what you were working your entries around the 2100. I mean, then I doubt you'll be covering here. You'll be trailing maybe a little bit. Probably need to trade wide because this could stay very, very volatile. But again, don't get suckered in trying to short lows, right? It's just there's not an awful lot of edge. So again, I suspect a lot of people will start covering a little bit. Should we get into the 1950s, I'd expect to see a decent bounce as a lot more covering starts to come in if we get back into that level, right? And yeah, we had a very nice short here, right? Very tight stop off off that daily close at the 2100, fairly pure setup. I mean, here the other big thing is crude, right? And what we discussed on crude is we're talking the fact that we expected it to try and find some kind of a bounce. However, the issue is it's always tricky, and you always have to be cautious on crude, especially when we're getting towards expiry and stuff. Contract rolling, there could be a lot of funky action, and again, we never expect this to really base without some kind of a bigger shakeout. So this could be it, but again, I don't think there's an awful lot of fresh sellers here. I expect there's just a lot of people stuck trying to liquidate. People getting some margin calls. We'll have to wait and see how this trades here, but still trading fairly heavy. Yeah, still trading fairly heavy. I don't think there's an awful lot of edge on cable. We've been talking about this a lot. We've been talking about this. We talked about this on Friday too, and we said there's a lot of more interesting ways to play cable than try and get long here. Don't get fooled by the breakout. Most likely we expect this to be structurally a long play, but it's probably just suffering from the covering on Euro GBP, right? So it's very difficult for this to rally if you're getting that squeeze on Euro GBP, right? And on Euro GPB, what we're getting is we're just getting a very pure move, right? What we said is we're looking for this to bounce, and we said if anywhere this was the place it was going, that pivotal level, we'd expect it to try and bounce off that zone, right? Expect it to bounce off that zone, and the first target for the bounce was 7260s. Now 7260s is likely going to be the next pivotal level here. Now if the sellers can come in, then we'd expect it to hold a fairly heavy tone to go back up. But if it can clear that, then we could see even more of a bounce, right? We'll have to, we'll have to be patient. We'll have to wait and see. But I think it was time to see some kind of bounce, even though structurally we remain short, and we think that this will ultimately try and go to move back to the downside. But right now it's just a healthy little correction here. The same thing we had on we're having on the ES, right? And it could be higher. It could be all the way back into the 7750s. We'll have to wait and see, but this is an interesting point. Now keep in mind that it being expiry date, things could be a bit funky, and also a lot of people that may be interested in specific levels are not necessarily going to want to try and jump in on a Friday, right? Anybody really trading any serious size probably not going to want to come in and take on huge risk, put on a big trade just before the weekend. Much rather just let the overnight over the weekend risk go and reestablish positions on Mondays, right? At least myself included, my focus here is to protect my weekly P&L and not put myself in a condition to have a bad rest of the day, right? So clearly there could be there could be a lot more stop run here. These things could really extend today towards the end of the day. That's why it's a bit of a funky day. It's also important to not only understand levels that of interest, but also understand context, time of day, time of week, time of months, because sometimes it simply doesn't make sense to try and take certain baits, or you really have to widen your stops and drop your size in order to do that, okay? Gold, we've had a very nice move. Again, I would we got some sellers coming in at that 100. I'm not a huge fan of shorting gold. Sorry, I'm holding swing longs on gold. Right now, as we discussed, we consider this a failed range break, so we consider this still in range 1200, 1150, 1100. We expect this to be pivotal, and even though there could be some downside Momo, negative close below the 1115 could give some interesting scalp short opportunities. We expect this to try and continue the rotation higher, but this is a key zone, in trend for down, so this is a key level. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. Yen, as we've been saying, not an awful lot of edge in this zone. If we had to do anything, we'd be getting short, not long, at those 125. So that was a decent trade, but not an awful lot of edge. I just don't think it's that interesting. Our favorite trade, which has been our favorite trade for a while, has been the Kiwi long. And here it's interesting. I mean, again, I wouldn't want to front run this monthly candle right here, right now. It's not really tradable, but it's just interesting to give you some idea of context, what's happening here. So this was a nice little fake out of previous month lows with failure to get traction and moving back above the 200 monthly moving average. In terms of an actual trading strategy, you had a fairly nice lazy trade here post that week. We were off on that holiday week when we had the China news and we broke lows. But again, as we discussed on the Sunday, the fact that it couldn't get any traction, we'd expect this to rotate back higher. So again, you didn't want to do this, but again, I wasn't planning on doing the update. I might as well keep it up here. This is a chart from the weekly webinar. So basically here, as far as we're concerned, the lazy trade was long into these 65.50s with a stop below these lows. That was a fairly wide stop. We trade that fairly small, just trying to look for a rotation back into the high end of the range. A pretty classic 1 to 2 risk reward, even though that's a very wide stop. But it is what it is. That's the opportunity that was there. Right now we're through we're about 120 in profit on this. TP1's done. Again, some people covering here. You've got to respect these previous highs. So there'll be some covering opportunity, but here you can clearly move your stop to break even, lock in those gains, and see if you can get that extension. But don't be fooled. If this stuff gets traction, we could easily go all the way back up into this gap fill zone. There's no reason why we can't do that. It's not the percentage play, but it's definitely something of interest, right? What else we got here? Nasdaq's really not looking really not looking pretty, looking pretty heavy. You know, we've been warning about this and talking about this is a bit of a sucker's play to try and play these gaps on LinkedIn and stuff, because that's a structural move, very different pricing assumptions. So we really said stay away from this, and we just keep on causing pain. You know, this is clearly not. Look at Twitter also, Apple. Really not the kind of stuff you want to get. You want to get aggressive trying to fade. You got to let things settle here. So I don't know. That's pretty much what we're looking at. You know, what's happening on Euro? Euro's nice little rotation higher. We had some scalp shorts today in the webinar. We took TP1 and then done on the rest. Didn't work out. So a lot of a nice little short this morning on Euro. Paid back previous resistance, acting as support. Nice little move. Globally speaking, it's just holding that rotation, right? We had previous resistance, act as support, beautiful little moves for rotation back higher. You know, very nice, very technical little trade, but globally speaking, it's still stuck in this broader chop zone, right? There's not an awful lot to do. Still looking for direction. So it is what it is, right? I don't know. Does anybody have any other comments or questions? I think I covered every chart everybody wants to look at. Yeah, ES is, you know, if anything, this could be interesting to try and look some scalping opportunities to the long side, but I wouldn't be too much in a hurry, right? Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, the webinar subs are still open until the end of next week, so you can still sign up. That's still open. Okay. Any other comments, questions, guys? Any chart anybody wants to look at? Okay, guys. Rock and roll. Have an awesome weekend. Thanks for flying with 50. Take care, guys. I'll post a recording on the blog if you missed the beginning of it. Okay?